Okay, welcome back to the InboundREM YouTube channel. Today what we're going to do is we're doing a masterclass, a tutorial on building a personal brand online. All right, obviously while this is specific to real estate agents, and I'm going to give you some ideas, this is actually, you can use this no matter what profession you're in, what you do. I've used some of these strategies many different times. I've built 6 different businesses that I am a primary stakeholder in over the last 30 years. And I've built, and I sit on the board of a couple of other companies where I'm not directly involved, but I have consulted on these subjects. Actually, I've consulted on these subjects hundreds of times with brands big and small. All right, so let's get started. We talk about this a lot in marketing classes. Any of you who've ever gone to school, college, when you start talking about building a brand or you start talking about marketing in general, the very first thing that they generally talk to you about is identifying what they call the persona. That's the people that you're going to be talking to. Who is it that you want to be relating to? Because believe it or not, before you can establish a brand, you need to establish who is that brand going to be speaking to. Okay, in my case at InboundREM, it's real estate agents, but there's a lot of subcategories that, like subcategory 1, they want to be independent, don't want to be responsible to a brand. Subcategory 2, they're tired of all the real estate marketing companies that constantly sell themselves, get bought out by other people, things like that. They want a stable partner that is durable, okay? Independence, durability. Number 3, like, are willing to sacrifice short-term results for long-term higher profit. In other words, the very rare long-term thinker who is going to make a lot more money, but is willing to spend a few more years doing it. All right, so long-term thinkers. So it's independence, durability, and long-term thinkers. Those are the 3 subcategories of my persona. That's who I try to speak to. When I do building personal brand stuff that is slightly outside of that, it is because I have part of my mission in building a brand is giving back, literally with 0 expectations. I do not expect, most brand new agents do not make it, 8 out of 10 don't. So if you're one of the 2 that does and you have 4 or 5 years, eventually maybe you will become one of my clients. So when I teach courses like this, I am teaching them just out of the sake of, I would like there to be better information available for real estate agents that's focused on you and digital. You can get a lot of great higher level stuff through Tom Ferry. Now, all of the things that I've just mentioned to you are examples of how I build my personal brand. Every single detail that I just gave you was me building my personal brand. It's personal messaging, and I know exactly the audience that I'm speaking to. So now we circle back around to this. Number 1, identify who you want to be relating to. So let's talk about specifics. Real estate agents tend to be geographic specific. I am in Van Nuys. Van Nuys is a highly Hispanic neighborhood. If you're just moving into a brand new area and you're trying to figure out who do you want to identify to, you start at the top level with digital research. You go and you find out what is the racial makeup of the area that you're looking at, like white, black, Hispanic, so on and so forth. And once you understand that, you start to understand you want to go out and meet your audience. You do not want to make any assumptions about your audience. I'm one of the very, 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 very few white Anglo-Saxon people in my neighborhood. Almost everybody that bought a home here owns it for 50 years, and we're immigrants. The guy that owned the property that I've been in for 20 years is Italian, and I mean first generation Italian. Okay, my neighbor, first generation Russian. My neighbor on the other side might be the only white Anglo-Saxon person that's in the neighborhood. And they all bought their homes 50 plus years ago. Why is that relevant? Because those are the people that would be selling the home in Van Nuys. The other class of person that I've met in Van Nuys is investors. Van Nuys is one of the most populous, most densely actually it might be the most densely populated city in Los Angeles County. And think about that for a moment. That means there's lots and lots and lots of apartment buildings here. And those apartment buildings are universally owned by investors, famous people, not famous people, holding corporations, things like that. Now, I know all that because I've researched it. And how did I research it? I went to the recorder's office. I looked at signs on apartment buildings. I found out who the holding company was. And then I found out who were the principals inside the holding company. And therein, I finally now know who the investors were in the buildings that populate Van Nuys. So this audience that I would be speaking to is either, as you can probably tell, is an older audience. Okay, the guy that owns this property is 83. My neighbor, she's 76, Russian. And my neighbor across the street is so old that I haven't seen her in years. And the neighbor across the street over there just celebrated his 70th birthday. All these neighbors fall into a category. So if I was a real estate agent in Van Nuys and I was trying to identify who I wanted to be relating to, most likely I would relate to an older generation, an aging audience, things like that, maybe immigrants. And I'd start talking about, so I would say, all right, these are the people that I might want to be relating to. Now, the other part of the market that I'm not talking to you so much about, because I'm only talking to you about the 5 homes that directly surround mine, and I've met all of them. I know all of them. So I'm 100% sure of who those people are. But down the street, like one street up, it's highly Hispanic. How do I know that? Well, there's quinceañeras here all the time. Very, very Hispanic. And the Hispanic neighborhood portion doesn't necessarily come over here and hang out with my little portion of the neighborhood. What I really am trying to tell all of you is that when you decide who you're going to identify and who you're relating to, there's 2 levels. There's online research and there's the people that you can go out and meet. Now, you may not be like me and you may not be wanting to market in the neighborhood that you live in. You may want to be marketing to a neighborhood that you don't live in. So how would you meet those people? There are so many public places that people go who are responsible members of a neighborhood or community that it's always funny to me when people are like, oh, I don't know where to go meet people. Well, it's like, all right, well, you can go to a swap meet, you can go to a PTA meeting, you can go to an HOA meeting, you can go to, there are so many different public meetings that are held. You can go to any political thing, especially right now, as November circles around. Like, let me tell you a great place to meet homeowners. There are positions like the LA, here it's called the LAUSD, I think it is. Anyway, it's the Los Angeles Unified School District, okay? And they are constantly trying to elect supervisors, and they are desperate, I mean literally desperate, for involvement from the community, because while everybody likes to talk about the big political issues, it's almost impossible to get people talking about local, but local is what makes the needle move. So if you're talking about, oh, I want to meet other people who might be homeowners and involved in a particular area, heck, go to some of these local rallies, because number 1, you're going to be welcomed with open arms. Number 2, everybody's going to want to talk to you. Okay, it's the easiest thing in the world. And then while you're there, you start to work on number 2. Okay, so you're trying to figure out who you want to be relating to. Going out to these public places, going out to parks, going out to places that are physical and public in the area that you're in is going to give you some concept of who you're trying to relate to. Online research will also give you another level of who you're trying to relate to. It is always going to be good if you happen to be part of the racial identity of some percentage of this group. In other words, I described to you all these, we categorize them as white, but my neighbor barely speaks English and the guy that owns this property speaks broken English. So, ish. Well, I don't know that I'm being fair to Frank. He speaks better than broken English, but deep accent though. So, who are they and what do they want? Right, so now let's just say that you finally got a couple categories of people that you think you might be wanting relating to. All right, who who are they and what do they want? Now, this is probably one of the most important questions that you're going to have to address for yourself. You need to figure out what kind of challenges the people that are in the demographic want to have answered or resolved. At the same time, where does that line up with personal passions? Okay? Who are they and what do they want? Who are the people that you're speaking to? That's complicated. It's a little more complicated, this second layer. Because if I'm talking to the Hispanic population in Van Nuys, well, it's extremely family-centric. And they're going to want, they may or may not, they may want to be moving out of Van Nuys, actually. They may not want to be here anymore. And there's a large variety of reasons for this, but they're probably going to be extremely interested in their kids' schooling. Here's a shocking fact that a lot of people would be surprised by. In Van Nuys, it appears to me that 80% of all Hispanic parents walk their kids to school. Somebody from the family walks their kids to school. I am here. I see this going on. It's a wildly personal culture. I don't know how they manage it, but when you are waiting, there's a school down the street and there's just nothing but people walking to and from the school. So proximities of schools, things like that. These are going to be elements like, so how does that relate into real estate? Walkability scores. It also relates into your own personal family values. This would be very helpful if I was Hispanic. I am not. This is probably not going to be one of my top audiences that I would appeal to. I also don't speak Spanish. I don't speak their native tongue. So even though they're prevalent, it's predominant, the area I live in is predominantly Hispanic, I would mostly target the audience that I was talking to you about in number one. All right? So I'm basically walking you through the exercise of how I would create a brand in Van Nuys and hoping that you can apply it in your own business. So now, number 3 is create a mission that will serve you and the audience at the same time. This has to be something that you believe in, that provides benefit to the audience that you're trying to appeal to, and something that if anybody was to ask you about it or you're going to produce any content on it, your passion is going to shine through. It doesn't really matter what it is that you personally have as a set level of interests. I've got drone operators that are real estate agents that have great livings, and they're very passionate about flying drones because and it's a hobby. But that hobby can translate very well into a mission that relates to real estate, because I'm going to take aerial, I'm going to do aerial stuff that very few other people will do, and I'm very passionate about it. So you can get a very strong aerial package representing your home in a very special way. That's a way to take a hobby, create it as part of your mission, and then speak to your audience. All right? But the same thing can be done with dogs, cats, religion. I mean, I would not personally recommend this, but politics. Like, there's very few things that you couldn't create that you have an interest in that wouldn't, if phrased or built the right way, would serve an audience. Okay? You would speak to the audience that you're trying to. So now going back to building a personal brand online. So what I would do here is I would build a dual brand if I was going to sell real estate in Van Nuys. Number 1, I would be talking about, I do have a fascination in the corporate structures around the transferring of wealth without losing all your money to taxes. It's just interesting to me. It's not like a massive interest, but independence and financial independence and being able to tell everybody to fuck off is a big part of my personal brand. Okay, which means that it's the United States. You need money to be able to do that. So I've always done a huge amount of research into things that basically create financial independence. Okay, and that would play very well into the apartment building strategy. So I would start to build content and an identity around financial independence and how that applies into apartment building owners. And the next thing that I would do is I would connect a mission to something that is incredibly important to me. This is personal. The first one was the more minor of the two. Now, I happen to be adopted, or no, I am adopted. I got very, very lucky in that game. I had this amazing, amazing matriarchal figure that was my grandmother. She was one of the first entrepreneurs I ever got a chance to meet. She gave me my very first job. I could go on and on and on. Every single person that's ever known her, their life was enriched tremendously. And she passed on not that long ago, and the family went through probate on her property, which was local to me in the valley. And while it went more seamlessly than many other processes of this kind, it was still a big and trying time related to this human being. So I would talk about the successful and easy transfer of property, because in the world that I live in, the immigrants and things like that, the greatest wealth that they've created and that they're gonna leave for their kids is a paid off house in these neighborhoods. It's so easy for me to get passionate about that. So easy for me, because we're not talking about millionaires or billionaires, maybe millionaires, but they don't look at themselves that way. Like, I don't think my neighbor, she's got her 2 sons living with her. The person that I get this property from, he's got all of his kids living with him, and they're in their 40s and 50s. The reason that is so important is that family is number one. So I would very, very easily talk about how the easy transition of property from one person to the next, how you do probate correctly, how you do like a living will, and in some very rare cases, maybe like a trust and things like that. I would create these videos and I would speak to the older generations, put it simply and easily. Now, why am I going through all of this? Because you want to commit. Once you've gone through these exercises, you know who you want to relate to. What do they want? You believe that you have something that is important to you that lines up with what these people want. So now what do? To create a personal brand online, specifically online, you commit that mission to a video as early on as you can. I highly recommend that you go through this exercise a couple of times and that you commit your vision to a video. I did that myself. I am a walking, living, breathing example. The video that I did for InboundREM, that was my mission statement video, is 7 years on my channel. Now, I have consulted with hundreds and hundreds of early and mid-stage entrepreneurs, founders, things like that. And I've got to tell you that I have an advantage. I knew already that creating a mission statement video long before there was a company around it was going to help me stay on target. It was also going to let me know it was going to be my first test market to the audience to understand if I got all of this right. Was there response to my mission statement video? Comments, watches, views, engagement. That's another thing about building a personal brand online that's just absolutely incredible, is that we can test to see if we get this stuff right. We don't need anybody telling us. We don't need to guess. So you go through all this exercises, then we put a video online on YouTube where people can find it. And then we go, are they watching it? Are they engaging with the mission? Okay? You can go to the InboundREM.com homepage and you can see my mission video. Score it, rate it, comment out, like it, tell me I did a bad job, tell me I did a good job. Tell me it helped you with this exercise. Because once you commit to your mission to a video, and you've got, let's just say that you've got 50 friends and family, okay, and you're not me. You don't have the confidence or the experience that I had, where I just put it online and I went to town, okay, built a whole business around it. Let's just say that that's not you. Well, you're going to want to send it to your friends and family. You're going to want to let them make comments about whether or not they think you have a strong personal message in a targeted area, and that you address something that you think that audience wants. Okay? When you're in a lifestyle real estate place, people want to be engaged with that lifestyle. I have a client, which I don't think he's going to mind that I promote him. It's called River Rats Realty, I think is what his domain name is. And he's retired. And his whole brand, everything his personal brand is right now, after retiring from real estate in Northern California. Yeah, you heard it. One of the he retired to some lake, like in Nevada or something like that. And anyway, he's a river rat. That's it. Like, that's all he does. Gets on his boat, drinks beers, tools around. But he talks about it, and he talks about why he retired from real estate in where, you know, property in Northern California, the place he came from, is millions and millions. And the property he's at right now is like 300,000. He just messes around with it. He is like me. He's never really going to truly properly retire. He just wants to drink some beer, drive around in a boat. If you want to buy or sell a house in the area that he's in right now, he'll do it. Okay? And you would be lucky to have him serve you, because he is incredibly experienced. He's just kind of retired. That's a strong personal brand, though. You know, somebody that has all that experience. It's like getting a retired CEO to sit down with you and like from a Fortune 500 company, and tell you how to build your business. That CEO's brand is already built. And then them helping you build your brand is like reputation transfer. But that is what this client did, is build a extremely strong brand around both his retirement and the fact that he is ready to just be on the river. So he just came up with it instantaneously, came up with a logo, and he built an entire business around an idea and a logo, and it's extremely successful. So you want to distribute your video everywhere. Now, this is the only part about this that goes into online strategy, and I'm going to do another video here later today that's going to talk about this a lot more. So subscribe to my channel, pay attention, because distribute this video everywhere. There's lots of little strategies to do that. There's easier ones, there's harder ones, there's tools that you can use. I will cover that in another video here shortly. I hope that you got something from this video. If you're watching this, you're probably new into the real estate business, or considering the real estate business, or you're not in real estate at all. Do me a favor as a content creator. Encouragement, really, number one, it feels good. And number two, it helps the algorithm gets the video out there promoted. So hit the thumbs up, give me a comment, appreciate it.